Welcome to episode 41 of Shane Talks 99, September 17th, 1999, 9/17/1999. We've got two solid flicks to talk about this weekend, and first up is a movie called Blue Streak. It's a Martin Lawrence film that I've always held as like one of my favorites that he's done, and like I honestly don't really know why. Like this movie isn't amazing or anything. Like I don't put it on like Bad Boys level for Martin Lawrence. Like I don't think it's fantastic, but for some reason there is just something about this movie that I really just find simple and fun and really enjoyable. Like it's not an overcomplicated movie, like it's just fun, it's got a good plot, it's got great actors in it, and like it's got all these 90s comedy tropes that were like really popular, like all mixed into one movie together. And like I just think the movie is a whole lot of fun. So like this is what I needed from Martin Lawrence in 1999 because like post Bad Boys, like Martin had a string of negative stuff going on in his life. There was some sexual harassment charges on the set of his show. There's the infamous crossing the freeway with a gun in his hand. And then like just 1 month before this movie came out, Martin he ended up passing out because he was like jogging in a fat suit trying to get in shape for Big Mama's house. And then he ended up in like a 3-day coma because of that. So like I love Martin, but man, there was a lot of negative stuff going on around him in his life, like around this time. So this is what I needed from my dude to make me laugh again. And I got it. And so like in this movie, Martin Lawrence plays a jewel thief. Well, he like plays a thief and they're like just happen to be going after a jewel. And like John Hawkes is one of his partners in the opening scene. So great little cameo for him before his career took off. So they're pulling this jewel heist thing that's going on. And then Peter Green, who you might not have recognized the name Peter Green, but if you've ever seen like The Mask, like Peter Green is like the definitive bad guy in a lot of 90s movies. And like this movie's no different. So Peter Green betrays Martin Lawrence and John Hawkes, and like in their escape to the jewel heist gets broken up and the cops get called and like they're trying to escape and they're all trying to outrun the cops and Peter Green betrays everybody, and then Martin Lawrence ends up in this other building, and it's a building that's under construction. So he hides the jewel that they just stole, hides it, tries to take off and make his escape, and he ends up getting caught and arrested. So then, nabbed by the cops, he has to spend 2 years in jail. During that time, he gets out of jail, and he's got in his mind, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get this jewel that I hid. Come to find out, he goes back to the same intersection while he's getting arrested. He like looks up at the end, like there's a shot of the sign of the intersection sign of the two streets. He goes back there 2 years later and finds out that this building is now like an LA police department building. And so he tries to go in, finds out it's heavily locked down under security building. We get some more comedy from him as he weasels his way into the building with some various, gags and stuff like that. He ends up faking being a cop. And that's just kind of like where this movie goes. Criminal pretending to be a cop, funny, like all kinds of like comedic situations that he gets put in, like and like it turns out that like because of his criminal knowledge, he actually like helps the cops, solve some crimes and bust things up because he thinks like a criminal would think. Like definitely something that's on a lot of TV shows now about how like bad guys helping the cops and stuff like that. But this was where he was pretending to be a cop in this situation. So like goes out on multiple police investigations, helps them solve a bunch of crimes. And like I get it. This is very implausible. This is not like realistic in any way. There's no way that like a whole vetting process wouldn't have been done or someone can magically just walk in and say that they were transferred. Like I get it. And that's where my suspension of disbelief just comes into play, and I just let it ride with this movie. Like, I don't need to overcomplicate and overthink the plot to a comedy like this. Like, it's still a really enjoyable film. Like I say, it's stuff that happens in a lot of night. Like, I mean, I love movies like Mo Money, but like the stuff that happens in Mo Money, absolutely not plausible that you could easily commit credit card fraud that way just because you work at a credit card company. Like, I just I get it. There are some of these movies from the 90s that you just got to turn your brain off and say, I'm going to roll with it. And Blue Streak is one of them. And I'm fine with that because it is a fun ride. And like, these movies wouldn't be as enjoyable if you actually like overthought them. So, like, I'm fine with Blue Streak. I'm fine with going on this ride with them. And like, Martin Lawrence, he has great chemistry with, a little known actor you might have heard of called Luke Wilson. I mean, he'd been around for probably like 5 years now in Hollywood. I think like 94-ish was when Bottle Rocket hit. So like Wilson's starting to come up, starting to get some bigger parts in movies and whatnot. He plays this really dumb cop. Dumb cop. Like you learn later on, he's not as dumb as he was played out to be. But like he's really good like straight man comedy against Martin Lawrence like comedy. So like the pair of them like really work well together. They have some really funny scenes, some good dialogue back and forth. It's just I can't even just say how much fun this movie just is. Like again, it's not great. It doesn't deserve any awards. It doesn't deserve any Oscars. But if you want to turn your brain off and just watch something and laugh and just enjoy it, like that's what Blue Streak is. Dave Chappelle shows up in this movie. Like he's got a couple of scenes and like he steals every scene that he's in. And like it's a lot of fun and goofy stuff that him and Martin Lawrence get to do together. And like this was one of those early roles of his. Like I mean, like he brought the comedy to Con Air. He brings comedy to this. Like he was doing stuff in roles that even though they were small, they were like very memorable. So like I absolutely loved getting to see Dave Chappelle in this movie. William Forsythe is another one of the police officers in this movie. Octavia, excuse me, Octavia Spencer has a very small single scene in this movie, but obviously she's a very recognizable face now. Um, Same scene that Octavia Spencer is in. We get another actress in that movie, a girl named Tamalia Jones, who as soon as she came on screen, I was like, I know her. I know this girl. I heard it in the voice. I saw her in her face, but I just couldn't place it, and I had to look her up on the IMDb. She ended up being the character of Lainey on Castle, the female medical examiner on Castle. So I thought that was really cool. Like I had no memory of her being in this movie. And I mean, at that time, I wouldn't have known who she was. I feel like she's done a couple of other movies. I can't think of any off the top of my head. So like this movie just has a good cast. Like it's got a lot of fun laughs and fun stuff that goes on with this movie. Again, like if you just want to turn your brain off and laugh at some stuff, this is that movie. Like it has it. It's good. It's not stupid humor. It's fun humor. It's clever humor. It's Martin Lawrence getting there, play some different characters and do some different things. It's very fun. And like the little postscript to this film. There was supposed to be a sequel to Blue Streak. They planned on doing a sequel after the movie. Like, the movie was a success. It made like $150 million on like a $30 million budget. So like it was a successful movie. And they immediately were like, we're going to make a sequel to it. That sequel never happened. I couldn't find anywhere online like what caused the sequel to not happen, so I'm not sure why it fell apart. But I do know I was able to find the script for the sequel was taken, rewritten, and reworked and turned into the 2002 film Bad Company, which stars Anthony Hopkins and Chris Rock. So like I don't know how much of the script stayed the same. I don't really, I mean, I can obviously see Chris Rock and Martin Lawrence being interchangeable. I guess Luke Wilson and Anthony Hopkins sort of could have been interchangeable, maybe. Again, obviously the rewriting, changed some stuff, brought up some different stuff. If the twin brother plot element would have still been involved if it was a Blue Streak sequel, like would they have tried to have Martin Lawrence play a bro like would his character who is now in Mexico have to be like the brother of or would it have just been like a lookalike character? Like maybe he just looked like somebody in the CIA or something like so I don't completely understand. Like obviously a lot of stuff had to get rewritten and maybe a lot of stuff changed over the course of it, but like whatever it was, there was supposed to be a sequel, never happened. That script somehow got worked into the movie Bad Company. So um I'm happy that there was never a sequel to this movie because like I wish other really great movies from this year would have, held true to that. Like The Mummy or The Matrix. I wish those movies would have just stayed with a single film and never tried to make any sequels. It would have been a lot better, in my opinion. So, whatever. I just found that to be interesting. It is what it is. Let's move on to the second film. And this one I'm very excited to talk about because I really don't talk about this movie very often. I mean, I probably haven't talked about this movie in a long time. I mean, I take that back. I have actually recently talked about this movie twice because I recently rewatched it this week. And I talked to Jason about it a couple of days ago after I saw it because I was like, I don't understand why I didn't like this movie before. And then I talked to another one of my friends tonight about this movie when her and I were talking earlier, just kind of explaining to her the same thing. Like, I don't understand why I didn't like this movie back in 1999. And so the movie I'm talking about is For Love of the Game. And like baseball, not really my favorite sport. Like baseball's fine, but like this was always my third favorite Kevin Costner baseball movie. This was always behind Field of Dreams, which is by far like the greatest baseball film that's ever been made, up there with The Sandlot. But then like it was always behind Bull Durham to me. And like to be completely honest, after this week, I'm really thinking I need to go revisit Bull Durham. Maybe give Bull Durham another watch, and maybe For Love of the Game jumps up to number two. Like maybe Bull Durham isn't like where I hold Bull Durham up to, because like, man, I remember loving Bull Durham when I was growing up, but it's been a long time since I watched it. It may not hold up the same way. So it's possible For Love of the Game could be my second favorite Kevin Costner baseball movie. Now we'll see. I'll circle back to that at some point. But like, what has changed? What has definitely changed since 1999 is how I ingested this film when I watched it. Because back in 1999, I remember the film being okay. Like I never disliked the movie. I didn't hate the movie. I just thought it was okay. I just there wasn't anything in the movie that I remember going, man, I really enjoyed this about For Love of the Game. Well, let me be the first to tell you that that has changed. A lot has changed. Looking back on 1999, I was not the same nostalgic person that I am today. I was very different. I was a very egocentrical, very how do I say, piece of shit human being back in 1999. So like a movie about a baseball player whose girlfriend tells him that they're going to break up so that she can move to London so that she can pursue her career because she's getting tired of waiting around for him and watching him and his career. And they've been on and off again for a long time, and she's kind of done with that. So it's his last game. She's moving to London. He's got a lot to think about and reflect on while he's pitching this game in New York City for the Detroit Tigers. So, like, at 19 years old, not a lot of stuff in this movie that I could relate to, or that I was willing to relate to, or that I was like willing to put myself in this character's shoes. Like, but holy shit, 25 years later, I looked at this movie with completely different eyes. Like, everything in my life has changed. Everything about the way that I ingest film has changed. Everything about who I am as a person has changed. And man, I really, really love this movie. Like, I think this movie is really, really good. And like, maybe back then, I don't know if maybe the movie was holding a mirror up to me that I wasn't willing to look at, because like Kevin Costner's character, at least in the beginning of their, at least in the flashbacks to the beginning of their relationship, is not really a very good dude. Like he's suave, and he can pick up women, and that becomes very obvious when he makes terrible life choices by like cheating on Kelly Preston's character, which is not really cheating on her because they weren't really together, but they were kind of together, but they were not together because they were in two different cities, and she refused to come down and visit him. So then he may have slept with somebody else, and then she decides to come down, and it's the whole oops, bad timing thing in film. Um, but then he's like apologetic for it, but not really apologetic for it, because like she was the one that said like it maybe back then I just related a little too much to his character and being kind of a shitty human being, which I understand for the story is what they need to do to show his character evolve from being that way to being who his character is by the time we catch up with him in the future when he's pitching his final game. So maybe 25 years later, while I'm looking back at this and seeing how it kind of parallels some things that I've done in my life, that maybe I'm a little more open to this film. Maybe. Just maybe. I mean, maybe the fact that his character has a lot of, emotional issues and can't control his anger. And like maybe when he gets in a fight with somebody, he says some really mean and hurtful and hateful things that he doesn't really mean. That's how he knows to be when he's in fights. And maybe, just maybe, a lot of these things about his character just really rang true to me now in 2024. So maybe I'm looking at this movie a lot different than a young and stupid 19-year-old Shane would have looked at this movie, because like it's really bittersweet to see what goes on with this character and then be able to acknowledge that I have made a lot of the same and similar mistakes that his character has made throughout the course of this story. So I think in 1999, I wasn't at a point in my life where I could relate to the stuff going on in this movie. And again, I was not a nostalgic person back in 1999. I lived in the moment. I didn't care about anything else except what was going on. And now Much like the plot of this movie where he is reflecting on his life, this movie caused me to do a lot of similar reflections and see a lot of the things that this character does that I can relate to. So, Kevin plays a pitcher named Billy Chappell. He's a pitcher for the Detroit Tigers, which honestly, again in 1999 meant nothing to me, but now that's kind of a cool thing for me because I have two really close friends of mine who have a relative, like their great uncle or something along those lines, somehow related to them, who was also in the 1940s a pitcher for the Detroit Tigers. So, well, that's pretty cool. Number one, I didn't remember until I rewatched the movie that Kevin Costner's character even played for the Detroit Tigers, so I didn't have that connection. Going to New York City to the Yankees, I have an affinity for New York City now at this point in my life, so that I relate to in the movie. We have the Detroit Tigers. I always thought like when I was watching the movie and Kevin Costner's character is a Detroit Tigers pitcher that wears number 14, I was like, oh man, how cool would it be if Stubby Overmeyer, who is my friend's relative, what if Stubby Overmeyer also wore number 14? Like, how great would that be for the universe pulling everything together? But it's not. Stubby Overmeyer wore number 18 for the Detroit Tigers when he pitched for them in the 40s. But still, Detroit Tigers pitcher. Cool. I really enjoy and appreciate that fact as how it relates to my life now. Um, Billy Chappell's girlfriend, well, kind of girlfriend, like kind of on and off again girlfriend, like kind of girlfriend, but then not girlfriend, but then like more than just a girlfriend, but like they never really spend time solidifying their relationship throughout the course of the film. It's played by Kelly Preston. Kelly Preston, like super mega hotly. I mean, after Jerry Maguire, like how can you not? She just was very plain in this movie. I don't know if it was a choice by the production team or by her or by I don't know what it was, but like I'm watching the movie just thinking to myself that she just looked very plain to me. So I don't understand why that was a choice for the movie because, like, again, I have seen her prior to this appear stunning in movies. So I'm not sure what was going on with her and her character in this movie, but it is what it is. Despite all of that, John C. Riley plays the catcher in the film, the Detroit Tigers catcher who is catching the game that Kevin Costner is pitching. And like John C. Riley does a good job. He plays his typical sidekick comedy relief kind of guy, and he does it perfectly fine. He's got some good scenes with Kevin Costner. He's got a really good scene where he gets drunk and says some funny stuff. Like really enjoyable, typical John C. Riley character here. When Jenna Malone is in this movie, and like this is really early on in her career. Like this is maybe like her second or third like major film she's in. In a couple of years, she's going to be in the movie Life as a House, which is literally one of the greatest films I've ever seen. So like seeing her a couple of years before that, kind of at the beginning of her career is pretty cool. It's really an enjoyable story arc for how they portray and explain Billy kind of becoming a surrogate stepfather figure to her. Like I said, even though her parent or her mother's never really with him, he still has some moments in the film where he does very fatherly things for her and takes care of her. And like, obviously that hits kind of close to home to me now, as opposed to how it would have back in 1999. And like, let's see, J.K. Simmons is in this movie. He plays the manager, the Tigers manager, so that's cool to see him. Not a huge part, but I mean, J.K. Simmons obviously steals every scene that he's in anything he's in, so great to see him for a little bit. Brian Cox is in this movie. He plays the Tigers owner, who at the beginning of the film explains that he just sold the club. So that's that's another, and he's still throughout the course of the movie, but like other than that, like first scene is mostly just shots of him sitting in the audience watching the baseball game unfold. So it's still a really solid cast, and like I don't understand why I didn't love this film the first time I saw it. Like I remember even seeing it like a couple of times over the years. Like when I was talking to Jason about it, he mentioned that like this is one of the movies that when he catches it on TV, he has to sit and watch the rest of the movie. So like I don't know why I seem to have been the person who didn't love this movie as much as everybody else did. And like the film was written by a woman named Dana Stevens, who the year before in 1998 wrote the film City of Angels, a movie that I really like. And like the film was directed by Sam Raimi, a director who I love his work in horror. Like I love his work in horror. Like I love Sam Raimi horror movie. Like I love Evil Dead. I love Army of Darkness. I love Darkman. Like I like when Sam Raimi does horror stuff. So like I don't know, maybe I just wasn't at a point where like movies like The Quick and the Dead were doing anything for me. Like I don't that movie's just blah. But like no. I stand corrected now that I think about things. Sam Raimi also directed a film called A Simple Plan, Well, wait a minute. A Simple Plan was released on January 22nd of 1999. So why did I not talk about A Simple Plan on the January 22nd, 1999 episode? I talked about Gloria and I talked about some other crappy movie that I can't remember. Like, why didn't I talk about A Simple Plan on January 22nd of 1999? That is a huge oversight on my part. Apparently, because of the fact that A Simple Plan had a limited release in December of '98, it somehow wasn't on my radar to talk about on January 22nd of 1999. So I'm really confused about that. I'm also really confused about it because like I guess when I thought back on everything, like I mean, like I regret not including it on the January 29th, 1999 episode, but like I think I must have made the decision because when I worked at Clearwater, I got hired at Clearwater the very first week of 1999. So it would have been, the early, first through the seventh of 19. It was the first couple of days of 1999 that I got hired at Clearwater and had my orientation. And the first ever film that I used my employee passes on at Clearwater in 1999 was to go watch A Simple Plan. So I must have in my mind, because of the fact that it had been previously shown, like it did not open on January 22nd, 1999 at Clearwater. I know that for a fact. So whatever the limited release of it was, it must have come to Clearwater in December of 1998. I must have omitted it from this 1999 series of podcasts because of the fact that I didn't put together that even though, yes, I saw it as an employee the first week uh, of, of January 1999, it technically apparently came out in December of 1998. Its wide release for all of America was January 22nd, 1999, and it was also directed by Sam Raimi. So Sam Raimi has directed two films in 1999. And like over the last couple of weeks, I've talked about a lot of directors like John McTiernan and the guy that did Blast from the Past and whatever his crappy second movie was. Like there's a number of directors who did release two movies in 1999. Just most of them have a good one and a crappy one. Well, Sam Raimi, you win directing in 1999 because you directed two really good movies. Because I'm sad that I've never done an episode talking about A Simple Plan and how phenomenal I think that movie is. Um, but it is really great movie. Sam Raimi directed it. He also directed For Love of the Game, which now is literally a movie that I haven't been able to stop thinking about for the last week. Like I don't know why I didn't like it before, but I stand super corrected. For Love of the Game is an absolutely amazing film. So we got another good weekend coming up next weekend. At least two out of the three flicks are ones I'm excited to talk about. Mumford, really good unknown, like lesser known film from 1999. The movie Double Jeopardy, which I always wished was a prequel to The Fugitive, but it's not. Talk about that more next week. And then a movie called Jacob the Liar, Robin Williams movie, not a comedy. I'm pretty sure that's why I didn't like it back then, but we'll give it a rewatch and see what happens. See you in a week.